Good evening. This is One with OtunbaHOO on Heritage TV. Tonight, there are two things you're going to see. You see, because maybe the weather is a little bit better, I've gone back to my old modish. The German will say modish, the old model, old system, old style. My statement, my mood of dressing on one with OtunbaHOO is my lovely local attire. I love it. As usual, you are welcome to another edition of One with OtunbaHOO on Heritage TV. Today, as usual, I'm going to be having a guest. This is completely different from all other guests, and I will tell you why. Because I can start by telling you that he's a very remarkable in many senses. A person that, even though I'm going to get into start introducing himself, but we're looking at a man who is so determined despite the initial challenges he had as a young person. You will not believe this. He did not get to read. He did not start reading until about the age of 29. When ordinarily he should be working on his PhD, and probably he should also have been an assistant or associate professor of whatever he has studied. But because of his determination to want to succeed, wanting to be to get education, he went through, I don't want to use any negative word, he went through a very hard time. He went through the process. Today he had achieved, I'll call it, it's a kind of a feat, because that's really common. When you look at this picture, I can show you roughly the picture of this gentleman at the age of 29. That was in the national newspaper all over the world, all over the place in here and also in Africa. That is one very few out of not many who has achieved education at a very late age. I'm going to get him to introduce himself in a minute. But before I tell you, this man is now so successful, which the lesson is a lesson of if you are persistent, consistent, determined, there's nothing you cannot achieve. My guest tonight is, I must also say, in the process, you see, he has succeeded at, in fact, his native country or native state in Nigeria recognized and say, you must be crowned. So he has a chieftaincy that is not really common. I'm going to get him to tell you what it's all about, but that chieftaincy is related to education. We'll be talking tonight about education. Hopefully we're going to have time to discuss some other things, even though he's also having his thinking is aiming at doing some other things after he has achieved so much, wanting to do politics. But I'm going to take you there. But let me welcome my guest tonight, Chief Adetokunbo Oshunremi, the Baba Asiwaju. Asiwaju is like the person in front of the youth, and that's also a very powerful. That's not very common chieftaincy in Nigeria, so it's also unique in its own. So you are welcome to One with OtunbaHOO. I want you to top up my introduction. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, and then we can
Okay, thank you very much, Otunba, for having me here tonight. My name is Israel Ayodele Adetokunbo Oshunremi. But that is an additional name that came in recent times.
Okay.
And that will come in some time to come. I'll talk more about that.
Okay.
And Israel as well. But yes, I was born and bred in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
And when I was 4 years old, I was taken to Nigeria. That was 1969. And when I got to Nigeria, I was put through education. And I struggled in Nigeria. I come from a broken home. My home is not on the spotlight here today, but I come from a broken home, and that had a devastating impact on my own life. And I went through 11 primary and nursery schools in Nigeria and 2 secondary schools. 11. And that is being conservative.
I read that in your book.
Yes,
yes.
Yes.
You went through,
Yes. I mean, if I should look at other bits and pieces, it will probably be more than that. Because my own life growing up was a case of twists and turns everywhere. It's drama everywhere associated with my life. So I went through education not achieving a lot. And I failed, I struggled. I had to come up with strategies to compete and navigate my way through primary and secondary school education. I completed my secondary school education at the age of 21, 1986 in Nigeria. And then I think 2 years after that, I managed to escape from Nigeria, and I came back to the UK. And then it took about 8 years that before I was diagnosed with having some sort of complex learning difficulties. The one that is quite pronounced is dyslexia. I'm severely dyslexic, and that I did not know what dyslexia was all about. I just know going through primary and secondary school in Nigeria that I wasn't able to read and write properly. I also struggled to speak, to pronounce certain words. That kind of shaped my life, really. I often refer to that as the invisible learning difficulties. My father, being a highly educated man of blessed memory, put me through a very tough time in Nigeria. Growing up in that system, educational system there, wasn't friendly to me at all. And not just me, it wasn't friendly to a lot of children.
That's right.
Who, if you cannot navigate your way through education. So I endured a lot of pain. I endured a lot of challenges, because essentially throughout my life I lived with my father. I did not have the privilege to have a positive impact in terms of female role model in my own life.
It has always been my man.
It has always been my father. Due to circumstances perhaps beyond my mother's control or my father's control, or circumstances which it's not for this occasion today, but it was just a struggle for me. It was just a struggle. So I came back here, and 8 years it took me before I was diagnosed. But I always am a leisure person. I always love sports, football, and things like that. So through my time in Nigeria, I set up different football teams, social and leisure activities. Despite the challenges that was quite apparent in my life, I managed to do those things. And those were the kind of things that kept me, sustained me when I got back here to the UK. And I just went on and did the same thing. I got married, went to Nigeria, got married, and then I have a phenomenal wife who has been tremendously helpful.
Very, very supportive.
Very supportive, tremendously helpful. A woman that did not know what she was marrying into, and the kind of baggages that I was bringing along. Nevertheless, she had weathered the storm with me, and then I am blessed with wonderful children who have put up with me despite my own complex upbringing.
And these challenges.
And challenges. It has not been easy for them to to address and to be children that that dad would just do things naturally. I do things in a very peculiar way. And so basically that's me, and I'm blessed with these children.
Again, I started by saying to our viewers that you are remarkable, because traditionally, if you look at the list of people who happen to have similar experience, they probably will give up middle of the road, because they will find it difficult to continue, because it is not ordinary struggle. It's a very big struggle to wanting to be at a certain age of 21 and still struggling to even read and write. But then one thing kept you going, and that is your own determination. Because I read your book and I saw that despite the twist and turn, up and down, that you at a certain stage you are changing from auntie's house to uncle's brother of your, all that kind of thing, and the uncountable time that you have to be punished and say, what's wrong with you? And so here you are today. Tell our viewers, is it a common thing, the problem of being having this kind of challenges? Is it a common thing, or is it only in Nigeria? Or
it is.
What I'm trying to say is, how much support? Because let's quickly go to Nigeria and then we come back here.
Right.
How much support is available in Nigeria to people who are going through? They're still going through what you went through.
People who fall into the same category.
Same category, yeah.
Right. As at the time I was in Nigeria, at the time I was growing up and trying to find my way through education, I would say practically zero support. Virtually, the only support that children like me get is beating. You are completely humiliated before your peers. You get the same thing when you get home. And there is no mechanisms in place to identify why a child is perceived to be dull.
Yeah.
We refer to them as dull. There's another word in Yoruba, we call them Yoruba olodo. That means you're dull. And then I actually believed it. I believed it because if I cannot write, if I cannot read, I used to lock myself away, or my father used to lock me away. I used to bang my head against the wall. Self-harming was the order of the day for me. If you're caught in Nigeria doing that, you'll be labeled as having some sort of spirit in you. So I had to find a way. I had to cram. I had to memorize that. It wasn't like I couldn't read at all. I could read, but when you have a sentence or 40 sentences in a paragraph, and you can just about manage about 20 of them or half of them, you are completely lost. So there were children like me in Nigeria who struggled. My own challenges stemmed from a traumatic birth. I did not know that. My mother had delivered me when I was 7 months and 3 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm premature. I didn't know that. And the process of coming into this world, I was born in Whittington Hospital in Islington, in London. I was bridge birth, which means I came out with my legs instead of my head. Okay. And one of my legs got trapped. So they thought I was going to die. They thought my mother was going to die. So a subtle disturbance in the brain structure and starvation of oxygen to the brain, a lot of trauma, a lot of things happen. Eventually, after hours, at birth, after hours, they managed to God be the glory, I was delivered. My mother survived. She stayed in the hospital for some weeks, and I was in the hospital for months. I was in and out of the hospital. My head was hanged, my leg, all sorts of things were done. I was put in this machine. I didn't know all of these things. I did not know at all. I just know I walk funny. I walk lopsided. This leg, my right leg is shorter than than the than the left leg. Okay, and my neck tend to link to one side. So all of those things were there, and then I just could not read.
I hope all these are now corrected, though.
Well, there are certain things you are born with. It's like if your leg is cut off, you just manage to navigate. Sometimes you give your first leg, you manage it. It's not necessarily corrected. It's been managed. And as I grow older, I feel intense pain. There are certain things that needed to have been corrected when I was young, when I was a baby. And the process, the things were in place. But then my father decided to go back to Nigeria, and he took me to Nigeria.
So you now lost the opportunity of...
all of those things that needed to have been in place. We call it play therapy. We call it psychological issues that needs to be addressed. I used to wet the bed until I was 9 years old. I used to be driven like a machine. I talk excessively. Things were not quite right. The damage was done in that process. But because the foundation wasn't there, it had a devastating impact. And not having the biological mother there played its own part as well. You see, so there were different people coming in and out of our family.
And also in your book, you alluded to the different relatives that you have to put up with, and also how much unhelpful they are to you. Some are very helpful, but also some also have this problem of, as you said, this Olodo boy. They are not too sure whether they are very proud of you, because as far as they are concerned, for them, and I know this from not I don't have the same experience, but I know what it is in Nigeria. Once a child is not like
the majority,
bubbling, you know,
the majority.
Yes, they see you as
yes,
as well. I don't want to use a serious word, cause, but they see you as
essentially that's what what it was. That's what it.
As far as they are concerned, this is a call on this is a cause on the family.
It is, and that's
so. That was also not very helpful to your cause, because around that time, those are the formation time when period that you're supposed to get all this support, which if we now come here, because the same age group, the time you were taken to Nigeria, probably the same age that is left here with the Medicare, and around that time, probably the rehabilitation period is going to be much faster than the rehabilitation time in Nigeria. Now, but let's move on gradually. Now, after you finish, you come back here, then how did you want to continue? How did you continue your education?
You know, when I was leaving Nigeria, 1988 it was, I thought my problems were over. I honestly thought I was coming to paradise. Even though I was born here, I couldn't quite comprehend the beauty and the ugly side of this part of the world, because I didn't necessarily grow up here. The first 4 years of my life, I was in foster care. So that's where I was. So I came out of my foster care, went to Nigeria. And when I got back to the United Kingdom, it was a new chapter for me. It was supposed to be a new beginning. But all the things, you see, you cannot compare anything to having a good foundation in life. All the things that I thought I left behind in Nigeria, they came on the plane with me. They were with me. Psychologically, I was damaged. Even though it is not written on my forehead. On my forehead, I carried those neglects. I carried those abuses with me, and I tried to put myself through education here. It didn't work. I couldn't do things. I couldn't write. I couldn't do anything.
Why is that? Can you expand? Can you tell us why is that? Because ordinarily, when it's very sad to say this, but I don't. It doesn't bother me to say the truth of how we feel. An average young African who wants to go to Europe. An average young person, even the children of the well-to-do ones, they still want to come to. So, but why? How did you carry? How does that become glued to your hair? You understand what I'm trying to say? You say when you got here, when you left Nigeria at the age of 20,
23,
23, yeah, is it 22, 21? I think in your book.
No, not 21. I had my first
Between
child
23 and 24, so
20, I was in my mid-20s.
yes, mid-20s when you came
1988,
here.
I got back
Right,
here,
but
23, 24.
Are you saying the period you stayed in Nigeria also contributed to some additional psychological?
You see,
that area, can you please tell our viewers?
it is very easy to bring down a building. We can bring down a building within a day, but to restructure the building is very difficult. My situation was psychological. My situation was sociological. My situation was something that happened in childhood repeatedly. It wasn't a period. It happened repeatedly all the way. I've written extensively about 2 dogs that were chained in my next book, which will be out soon. And I present that to the world, what happened to those 2 dogs when they were released. So coming to the UK and having to put myself through education was not easy. I had to rely on people. In fact, I over-rely on people. And the people that I rely on had their own life to live. Because I often rely on my father for almost everything. I was to be seen as a child, but not be heard. And that's the way I was brought up. It was almost like a zombie because of the deficiencies.
But that was because of the disability. That was because of the challenges you are going through. Because an average father with 21, 22, who was already writing his final exam in university, we fathers, we're always proud of but when you now have a child that is not doing good, who has been a dropout or so, an average African father is not going to be proud of him or her.
Not at all, not at all. And I don't blame my dad for that. The blame that I put on my parents was, you have to discover what is wrong. No child in a classroom setting of about 20 or 25 or more, in Nigeria, in my case, more, 50, maybe about 5 or 7 of them are behind. No child wants to be dull. No child wants to be behind. How could you sit an exam out of 40 and you come maybe number 29 position? No child. You have to discover, why is that child like that? So I brought that here. Not until I was arrested by the police, and I was drink driving and I was arrested. I tell my story all the time. And then they did a blood sample, and anyway, to cut a long story short, I was referred to a clinical psychologist. It was through my GP, I went to the clinical psychologist, and the clinical psychologist then carried out some tests. And then that was the first time in my life I had the word dyslexia.
Excellent.
And then issues around my bath. He asked me, what was your bath like? I didn't quite understand why you're asking me. He said, because sometimes when children are born, certain things may happen to them, their upbringing. Then I told him about what happened to me in Nigeria. But he said, I want to know about your bath. What happened? Then I had to get in touch with my father and I asked him questions. I knew something happened, but the extent of what happened, I did not know. Because my parents went on their separate ways, and I hardly have a very good relationship with my biological mother. And so my father told me everything. And then in parts, my mother then told me. Then it was a question of going through counseling. It was a question of, okay, you are dyslexic. Dyslexia was dyslexia is the inability to be able to read and write fluently, and words, pronunciation of words and things like that.
And also, if you are asked to spell, you spell everything upside down.
Sometimes you can't even, you don't even know the beginning of the word, and it is quite embarrassing.
I know.
It is quite embarrassing. It is quite embarrassing that you run away. Your self-isolation kicks into it. Character defect kicks into it. All of those things, which I mentioned in my.
But I must also say, remarkably, you have made, out of these adversities, you've made a progress in many areas, and you have the last years You became an author. I think you're writing. Is it your second or the third book?
I've got few books that I've written there to be published, but the second one is the one that we are concluding now.
And also, you are involved in education of the youth. You are more passionate and more particular about people who have similar
learning difficulties. That's right.
And you are well known all over the place. You live in one of the excess counties, and you are everywhere in the whole of UK, traveling up and down, giving education to people. Now, let me quickly share this picture. This picture is, well, we can show it to our viewers. Who and who are there? I can see you wearing something similar to where I wear.
Yes, yes.
Yoruba attire.
This was many years ago. This was.
So what was going on here?
This is my drama group.
Oh, drama group.
I use my life story and the life story of children, young people in this society to educate them, to empower them, to inform parents. And this was a story around drug-related issues and crime. And I had to put a play, to put a drama in place. A lot of parents were there, and the impact what drug does to you, what alcohol does to you, and what leads to that life, that kind of life, where you carry guns, where you have knives, the insecurity that comes as a result of that. So that play, many of my plays,
and it helped
is built around that, and my mentoring sessions as well.
Fantastic. So are you saying there is a possibility of solving the problem that is confronting us? Because as you can see, the situation the minority are having in this country now is a problem of children, I call them children, carrying knives and guns and doing damages, untold damages, killing each other. So with this kind of your idea, what's your general perception of a situation like this? Because it looks like everybody is helpless. Within a short period of time, about 16, 17 youth lost their life.
That's right. Sadly.
So are you saying from the experience you bring into educating people with learning difficulties, can we also apply the same to solve the problem of gun and knives?
Well, some of these young people, it's a foundational issues. Some of them, it's an issue that I've classified.
When you say foundational issue, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I also have a guest here who said the same thing. She's a counselor, and he said this is a foundational issue, and I believe her. But I want to also to bring it from your own point of view. What exactly, in a more elaborate way, the foundation issue you are talking about?
Okay, I'll try and expatiate on this, if I may. My book, which you read, you do not write a book like that and not get receive some sort of get some consequences, because what I did with that book was to deep into my life and, and expose it to the world. And in the culture and background that we come from, especially if the caregiver hasn't done what they're supposed to do, you are supposed to just take it on and move on, regardless of how your life turned out. If you dare to go into a book like that and expose your life and expose what your caregiver does to you, there could be some spiritual implications to that. Many of the children and young people that you see today, some of them have come from a home setting where the foundation is non-existent, where the caregiver has not given them the positive upbringing. The start in life is what everybody needs. One thing is to be brought up in a structured home. Another thing is to face society. So the home, the system in the home, lack of positive role model, especially fathers. I mean, if a young person has been brought up the way I was brought up, into adult life, and you present that person to society, what kind of father, if not for the mighty intervention of God, would I be to my children? How can I love those children when I wasn't even loved and I did not know the value of love, the value of what a home is? It is only by the grace of God that you'll be able to do that. Some of these young people who are carrying knives, who are carrying guns today, they have lost, some of them are lost within the home setting itself. It is a home setting where the father is completely absent. And when the father is not absent, his presence itself is irrelevant. Maybe because that father is carrying a lot of issues in his own life.
Yeah.
And there may be cases, and let's not generalize, where the home is strong, where the structures are in place, where everything happens, but somehow that child has issues, psychological issues to do with the nature of his birth. Insecurity is the worst thing that anybody could have. There are two things I've mentioned in my first book and in my second book, is the mind and the brain. They work together. Once an individual has come to a point in their life, and if he or she concludes that they have nothing to lose, that person is dangerous. Dangerous to themselves and dangerous to society, which is what we are seeing now with children and young people carrying guns as a way of security. You see, you don't need to be associated to a radicalized organization or group.
Like this kind of gangs we're talking about.
You don't need to be associated. Your foundation can radicalize you. Your foundation can shape you into who you are not supposed to be. So abnormality becomes the normal way of life. So if somebody then offers you something where you don't have identity, where you don't have a sense of belonging, I did not have that. I mean, if not for the intervention of the new Labour government at the time of Tony Blair came into power, God knows where I would be now. I'm still on that path. I still struggle. Despite the fact that I'm nearly 53, I still struggle. How much more some of these young people? It is a question of dissecting what is going on, what is instigating this insecurity, this society itself. There's an expectation, the way you dress, what society presents. Some of these children do not have those things. So if you are broken from home and you are in society, whatever society offers you, you take. This is why some of these children are easily, they are easily lured in. They identify with things that will benefit, what they perceive, think will benefit them. And those things do not benefit them. It leads them down the drain. And another thing is the school system, the educational system. I've spoken, I wrote in my first book and in the second one, that the moment you enter into a school, the system of education should have different layers of intervention for children, especially things to do with learning difficulties. You see, when I came into this studio, if I have one leg, you can see that. If I'm blind, you can see that. If I'm crippled, if my hand is not there, if a limb is missing, you can see that. But what I have is learning difficulties. You can't see that unless I tell you.
Exactly.
And the society don't care. People roll their eyes and want to move on. Nobody wants to wait for you. You can't hold us back. So some of those children have those things in them. They don't know how to navigate their way through. So they carry knife. The school system itself caters for the majority. They want to tick the box. They want to teach children. Children that want to learn. When you compartmentalize the life of children from the home, it's all about book. And that's fine. But what about the other things that makes the individual that is lost?
Yeah.
So, and also, I've talked about the school system, I've talked about the home system, we talked about society and the individual. When an individual is broken, and that again,
that's a big problem.
That is the core. When all of those things are there, what then happens, Otunba, is depression sets in, paranoia sets in, social isolation sets in, mental health kicks in, character defect plays its own part, and then as a person, you are constantly instigating against society.
Yeah, under tremendous tension.
Yes.
The tension you carry is like that kind of tension wire on the electricity pole.
Absolutely. Many of these children,
that's what drives you.
That's right. Many of these children want to go to prison. Many of them feel a life behind bar is much better than being outside. So some of them would go to any length. They don't care. How would it be that I have to live my life based on drugs? I have to become an errand, drug pushing, trafficking, and things like that, right? I have to carry a knife. I have to carry a gun for security.
To protect myself.
In a country like the United Kingdom, where my own life was transformed, if not for the support system that I tapped into and the volatile nature of my birth and my upbringing in Nigeria, God knows what would have happened to me. I perhaps would have been one of the statistics of these children that we are talking about
They're
today.
killing each other.
Killing each other. So
let me quickly come in here again. Also in this country, because it's not a case of all hope lost. We have also had situations where single mother with 4 children and their children exceedingly succeeded.
Absolutely.
The 4 children, all of them have gone to study at the 4 best universities in this country. You want to talk of one gone to Imperial, one to Oxford, one to Cambridge, and the 3rd one went to UCL or one of these about 4 universities in the country, and they succeeded. So when we are talking of sociological and psychological argument here, we probably also must not forget that the argument that this problem did not start last week, or did not necessarily mean that because a parent is a single parent, the absence of the father is, yeah, I agree, it is contributory. But like I said, we also have situations where people who have succeeded without their father. Not that their father is dead, but their father has always not been there for them. And they do succeed. So, for me, it is the societal problem. And my own take about this is societal problem is children that grew up to see that their parents has always lived fake life. And I'm sorry, this is the truth. Because if you find a young girl of 12, 13, 14 that blew out so early, you know what I mean by that?
I do.
I want to wear a bra of 30 pounds, 40 pounds, one bra. And as you can see, an average human being wants to have many on this, many of this and that, wants to carry different kind of thing. But then she is copying the life of her mother, even though the mother goes to work Monday to Friday, but the weekend she has no time to spend with the children. She now wants to put all the gold, all the jewelries and all that kind of thing, go to high society parties. Of course, I think that we should be talking about that also part of the problem. Don't you think so?
It does. It shapes the children, because children will naturally copy what they see their father or mother do, and it becomes a vicious circle. It goes from one generation to the next. We have to commend, as you rightly said, parents, single parents or parents who are together, who their children have done well. The majority is not the concern. It's not the concern. What we are seeing around now, what we are hearing, it is the minority. One child or 2 can hold a class to a standstill. One volatile behavior can put a whole school to a standstill. We've seen what has happened in America, the gun culture there. We've heard how a child that is completely lost will take a gun and then start shooting people, you know, and the consequence of that stays with those families that are affected for the rest of their lives. Even the child turns the gun on himself or herself and take their own life as well. So we celebrate the majority who are doing well educationally, regardless, because naturally, human beings, we have a way whereby we survive, we strive. It is inbuilt in us. God does His own work through us. A situation that we never thought we can overcome. We will overcome them. We even surprise ourselves. But it's one or two that falls through the nets, creates the issue, creates the problem. A woman that doesn't know that is marrying a man that is broken, marry that man, and then their life is turned upside down. You know, what happens behind closed door stays behind closed door, but manifests when the children are now outside.
Yes,
you now see them grow up. And also there is expectations, especially in Nigeria. If you come from a family where the dad is a doctor, a medical doctor, and maybe the mom is a medical doctor, and some of the siblings are medical doctors, and this child wants to be a singer,
Yeah. Was even be a carpenter.
or want to be,
do something skill.
There's huge pressure
I know.
on that child's shoulder. Maybe he's not wired up that way. So he goes through that process and maybe had qualified to be a doctor and then gives the certificates to his dad. That's your certificate.
I understand.
I want to go back to be a carpenter now.
I must say I'm very lucky because when I look back, that I didn't have that pressure because my mommy died at 1965 at the age of 65, and I was just 19.
That's when I was born.
Yeah, and my daddy died in 1972. In fact, I've left Nigeria then, so I wasn't under any pressure until when I was struggling to put money together to travel 1970, when I was saying that I want to go and study banking in Europe, even though later on change it to political science. Now, so this pressure are all there. I also have one more, I think one more here. Would you tell us about this picture? What are you portraying here? What exactly is this?
This is so many years ago as well. This is when I worked for the local authority.
Okay.
As a lead mentor.
Okay.
And I went to represent them on BBC.
Okay.
We had a program on BBC, you will know, Robert Kiro Seal.
I know, yes, I've been to his program before.
Yes.
The guy from Manchester?
I don't know where he's from, but it was, the program
Bristol,
was somewhere in London.
I've been to his program twice.
Yes, so I went to talk about youths who have completed their university education and were jobless.
Okay.
And then some of them were going through a tough time. So I was there to represent the local authority because I was working with some
this scheme inspiring youth. What tell us just
1
minute or 2 minutes about it.
That is a young man. That's a young man. This is what I'm trying to say about having positive role model. When you have a positive role model in your life, people that can inspire you, you'll go a long way. But when you don't have those things, those kind of attributes in your life, things can easily fall apart. This young man was referred to us when he was in year 10. In a particular school in Essex.
Okay.
And then basically what the school was saying, I am the last resort. Can you kind of work with this young man and see if we can turn the situation around? He comes from a very affluent background, but he had a lot of challenges in his life. But through our intervention, my organization, Inspiration Youth Call, we were able to turn his life around. He went through his GCSEs, came out well, and then went into the army. And I was in Nigeria doing some work in some schools, and he got in touch with me to say that he wants to do this picture thing that he wants to. Was graduating from the army college or whatever, and we did that just to celebrate and to show that
that's a good legacy.
Things are possible. I just wanted to draw a line here, if you don't mind. Parents have to be accountable for their children. When some parents fail in their duties, they successfully divide and manipulate their children. Parents do that. Not all parents. Divide and rule, divide and conquer. I think there's a computer terminology for that. For that. And when they see that they haven't quite done what they're supposed to do, they successfully destroy, without them knowing, their children. What I say to parents, not all parents, open up to your child. Let your child know your struggles. Let him or her know where you have failed. Have a clean table. Put all the issues out and begin to address. You see, many of these children that you see is because their father or mother has been deceptive. They've labeled them.
Which amounts to, when I was talking that when a child is growing up at the age of maybe 10, you allowed him or her to put assets which he cannot afford. You buy him expensive things. I remember my second son, who's going to be 41 in this month. He insisted in the 80s that he wants to buy a shoe of 95 pounds, Adidas, around that time, the very expensive thing. And I insisted. I said, no, even though I was earning very well. I said, no, you cannot buy a shoe worth 95 pounds. because the day he came to meet me in my office in Savoro, and he said that, you remember I told you about I want to buy a shoe, and Oxford Street. And we took a walk, it's not very far from Savoro. And he took me to the shop, and he was telling me this is the shoe he wants. I said, no way, it's not going to happen. It is not because I couldn't afford it. So it's also, I'm trying to corroborate what you are saying. It's also part of the problem that a parent must, right from beginning, get the children to come along with them to understand that life is not so rosy, is not so good as you see. But quickly, because of time, I'm a little bit of the opinion that here we have a situation in this country. The way this country is structured is also a problem, because you have a child that has, out of 100% right of everybody, children from the age of 2, 3, 4, 5 to age of killing, some of them who are killing each other, they have almost about 85% right. They can do whatever they like. You understand me? You cannot force them to take orders from yourself. It's the same thing at school. You will not dare talk to your teacher anyhow when you are when you are schooling in Nigeria. But here, because of the structure, so that is also an issue, and we also need to drum that home to the system, to government, to understand that you cannot take so much away from a parent. You cannot chastise, you cannot do this to your child. Yes, I know there are some people who will abuse the situation because they kind of beat their children. But what I'm talking here is the children also realize that they have so big latitude of freedom.
Yes, I agree
What
with
do
you.
What do you say to that?
I agree with you. Again, it very much depends on the relationship. It very much depends on the foundation. It very much depends on how you have brought those children up. In our society, where we come from, where we grew up, as a child, you are supposed to, well, in my own case, let me speak for myself, you are supposed to be seen, not heard. Whatever your father or your mother says goes, right? That ability to interact with them, to constructively iron out situation is shut down in you. It is not the same in this society. This society gives leverage to children. Natural growth. There are certain things that this is why some of us, when we come over here and we start working, our boss, when they say something to us at the place of work, we become scared. We become frightened, because that is the way we were being brought up.
The way we are brought up from home, back
when
home.
Your father is talking to you, you don't look at him in the eye. You put your eyes down. Your hand is tied around your back. I can understand why we would think that way. I also understand that there's leverage in this country where children are taking it so far. They've taken it so far. And those children who are taking it so far are those ones that may have psychological issues. Not the majority. It is only the few. But those things are not being investigated properly. Children, natural growth. You should be able to challenge your teacher constructively with respect. You should be able to challenge your father constructively with respect. Not being abusive. Not being, if you do something and you behave in a silly way, a child, being a child, will say, Daddy, that's a bit silly. If you say that back home in Nigeria, you are in trouble. But the truth is, if you behave that way and that child says it is part of the growth of that child. You don't shut that down. There are natural instincts that we need to have, that children is. That is why you have some young people who are competent. Some young people who they will not allow you to push them all over the place, because they've been brought up that way. But some young people, where before you say this, they are shut down. Before they say this, they are shut down. And then we say they're disrespectful. And when they grow up, what do you present to a society? When you break, this is what a friend of my father said to my father one time. He said, the way you're treating Ayo, the way you're bringing him up, you are going to break his spirit, you are going to break his confidence, to the point that when he becomes a man, you present to society a liability, somebody that people will find very complex and difficult, the way you carry on, if you continue to do this.
I know. Again, let me just for 1 minute quickly tell our viewers, how will you compare the system, the education, the system, our educational system back home. And when you look at how much we spend on education compared to the educational system here, because of time, just quickly, can you address that?
Well, educational system in Nigeria is for the elites, a functional education. If you want to receive everything at your disposal and you want to progress, it has to be that you are in one of the top secondary or primary schools in Nigeria. Even that, they don't have those things adequately there, right? So education is a ration in Nigeria. It is for the
It's
privilege.
a ration.
It is ration, yes. It is, not, it is for the privilege, not the majority. And this is why I am trying my best, given the opportunity to drift into politics, the will of God, to try to change that, not to beat children, not to shut children down, and to create a conducive learning environment.
Yeah.
You go into some schools in Nigeria, in today's day and age, 21st century, you go into schools in Nigeria, there's no roof, there's no door, there's no proper toilet.
It is terrible.
And the children are smiling, but they are learning and they are packed like a sardine in some class, in some classrooms.
But
and you are not meant to talk about it.
You find that all over Africa. Now, okay, your organization. Tell us again with 1 minute, because we talk extensively about education and about your experience and so on. What is the main mission, objectives, and what drives your organization?
My organization was set up as a result of what happened to me. But it's not just about me now, it's about other children, to inspire children and family. We are a bridge builder. We run mentoring program and do motivational seminars. I bring about awareness to parents. We sometimes are invited to churches where we go to speak. We sometimes go into community group where we go to speak. I have issues.
Is your focus on the parents or?
My focus is holistic.
Okay.
It's an holistic approach.
Yes.
Its focus is on children,
and also
primary
on
school,
parents.
secondary school, university, whatever, in terms of bringing them up, in terms of a child, a young person identifying that, look, you know what, you are not a waste of space. You are not what they say you are. You become who you say you are. You become what you accept. So we run motivational seminars.
Okay.
We do trainings in terms of empowering parents to make the right choices. Even when I operate on their platform, it goes well. That doesn't mean to say that I'm a perfect father. That doesn't mean to say behind doors I've got everything right. Of course not. Of course, so I continue to learn, but I borrow from the past. What happened to me, I bring them into the present.
In order to determine what's going to happen in the future. Yeah.
To construct the present here and now in order to move into a prosperous future for this. So my organization, Inspiration Youth Corps, we get contracts in schools to work with parents. And during normal school hours and outside of normal school hours, we provide leisure and social activities. We help them those are on the fringe of being excluded from mainstream, or those that we can see there's a smell of gang trying to filter into their life. It's about quick, early intervention. We intervene in their life quickly.
And so far you'll be succeeding. Yeah,
massively,
yeah,
massively.
I'm very happy to hear that. Within, I mean, again, just under 1 minute, I introducing you, you are a chief, but a special chief for that matter. It's a chief that chieftaincy that conferred on you, relating to upliftment of
children,
aways, youth, children. You know, again, 1 minute, quickly. How did you come about this? How?
Well, His Royal Majesty, the Alaki of Egbaland, Adetokunbo Oshunremi. I was very frequent in Nigeria, and I was asked to go and see him so that he knows the mission, why we are in Nigeria. And that time, this was 8 years ago, there about 2010. 2000, just before 2010 anyway, I think. I went to see him, and then we talked extensively about education. And the man is passionate. He's the most humble royal father you will ever meet in Nigeria.
I know him very well, yeah.
We eat in the same plate. He became almost like a father.
Oh,
so
that's who he is, yeah.
And then he then recommended that I should go into his own alma mater, secondary school, to speak there. So that started a trend. I went into my own secondary school, and the feedback that he got from some of the parents and the head of school was phenomenal. That, wow, where did you get this guy from? That came from England. Can't we have a system? Can't we have this kind of structure in Nigeria? So out of his abundance of wisdom, he decided to confound me with
Well, I
with
must
the
say congratulations.
Aare Asiwaju of Egbaland, which
Yes.
I am. It's not a traditional. It's not a traditional title. It's an honorary title.
That's what I'm saying. I'm aware of that because also as a chieftain also. Now, we all this put together, because we are in the last dying minutes of this program. I understand you are trying to break into Nigerian political forum.
Yes.
How far are you already been nominated for?
No, I've not been nominated.
Are you eyeing for elective?
No.
Or selective?
I've been speaking to people,
okay.
And my passion is in education.
Oh, you don't want to be governor or anything?
You see, God's will is one thing, phenomenal. If I drive myself forward without God's will, then nothing will happen. God used the people that have got deficiencies. Those are the people that God used the most. And the person that comes to mind, Blebiku Moses, who was a stammerer, who thought he could never do anything. He was a stammerer, he has an anger-related issues, but God called him and used him. So I believe when the time is right, whether it is to be a governor, I look at myself and I say, me, I'm not qualified. But if God qualifies,
yes,
He will put the right people
all
around
this,
you.
Okay.
And if it's a commissioner or to go to the House of Senate or whatever, but I believe that when that time comes, if it is in the will of God, I will be in Ogun State. Ogun State particularly.
Yes.
I'm passionate about it. Because it's the most phenomenal state of all the states that you have in Nigeria. Remove Ogun State, you will have Nigeria.
I do know. I know very well the structure of Ogun State. My mother is from Ogun State. My father is from Ogun State, but born and bred in Lagos, and I know the difference.
We have all the heavyweights from Ogun State. If you remove Ogun State, you will not have a Nigeria.
Again, this is coming to the end of this program, and I think we have touched most of your area of passion. We have discussed area of education. I insisted that this program today is going to be about education, and hopefully we're going to have opportunity again to expand on what we discussed today. And I just want to thank you.
Thank you
for coming.
Thank you.
And also I will see you as you inspired. I'm sure many of the viewers tonight will be inspired. They will see, here we have a young man, well, no more a young man, middle-aged man, 53 now. They say, well, who has done so much, not only for himself, and from the abundance experience he had when he was growing up, struggling to get education, he's now carrying it to help others. He's using it to empower other children. We want to continue to wish you success in everything you do, and also want to wish your NGO, that at least you are able to leave a better legacy by helping millions of people out there. It's been a pleasure. We want to thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. This is a Heritage. You can follow us on Facebook, and Twitter handle is OtunbaHOO latest. And also, again, on this program, we are looking for people who want to come on this program to help us. If you want to advertise, or you want any particular topic or subject you want to discuss, find us on Facebook, Heritage TV Online. We'll be too happy to want to talk with you and see how it goes. Again, I want to thank you very much for coming.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.